parents wanting their children to have such a healthy relationship with their body, with food, with exercise. But the reality is that we're just not taught this stuff. We're not taught the language to use. We're not taught how to talk to our kids about these topics. And we've grown up in a society with so much unhealthy messaging. And I know myself that I catch myself frequently saying things that I'm like, hold on a minute. But also, for myself, the things that I'm saying and the language that I'm using. So I wanted to ask you, what do you say if your kid comes to you and says, I'm fat?
Yeah, I get asked this question so often, and I think as you say, it's parents aren't taught how to handle that. And I think the natural inclination for lots of parents is to say, oh, no, not, you're beautiful, which is so natural, especially because most of us have grown up in this culture of fat being the worst thing you could possibly be, which of course is ridiculous. But that's the messaging we've been given. And so, of course, we want to try and neutralize that distress in children. But of course, when we do that, we shut down the conversation. We dismiss their distress around it. And it actually perpetuates this idea that being fat is too bad to even be spoken about. It's the worst thing you could be, or that we can't even talk about it. So actually, if a kid comes to you and says, I'm fat, I try and be really curious about what they mean by that. Because, there's also an assumption, I think, for us as adults to assume that that word is being used in a negative way, when actually it's been reclaimed in many, in many circles as a neutral descriptor, which is what it should be, just like tall or brunette or blonde or whatever. To ask your kids, what are you feeling? What does that mean to you? What's made you feel that way? And to remind them, use it as an opportunity to remind them that all bodies are good bodies. All bodies come in different shapes and sizes. And the most important thing is how we treat ourselves and each other. And so that way you're reinforcing the message that body diversity is normal, that size isn't a moral value, and that it's okay to talk about these things. And the same goes for if someone else has called your kid fat and they're upset about that, to help them be curious about what that other person meant, whether what they might have been feeling. And so you're really recognizing that, or helping your child to recognize that the problem is not their body, the problem is people name calling or using mean words or insulting words. And so you really highlight what the actual problem is, which is not their body. And you kind of help them to keep their self-value and their self-worth intact. If we reinforce this idea for kids that being bigger is a problem, you leave with them this fear of weight gain, which it doesn't actually matter what body size they are. Once that's developed, it stays with you, as most of us have experienced this kind of struggle.
That's such great advice. And it's so simple, really. It's catching ourselves in that moment as parents, and, when the heartstrings are pulled and we want to react and we want to stop the pain or our perceived idea of pain or anxiety. So it's just catching ourselves in that moment and really leaning in with curiosity and understanding.
In your case, it's so important to be compassionate with yourself around that, because when you've spent many, many years in diet culture being told that being bigger is a problem and that you should diet and change your weight to be acceptable, of course you're going to feel that way. Of course you are. And of course you're going to want to protect your child from that. But it's recognizing that actually by trying to protect them, we're actually perpetuating this narrative that it's not okay to be bigger. And, that's just simply not true.